Yujiro being forced to use martial arts on Pickle, the ogre turning coal into diamonds, Baki and Yujiro rematch outcome and victor, how the Musashi arc came to be, and much more to be revealed in today's video. These are some of the main questions discussed by the creator of Baki, Itagaki, who did various interviews alongside the Japanese voice actors for Baki and Yujiro on this big YouTube channel. Today I gathered all the key questions and responses from the author, some stuff everyone watching today's video will definitely be interested in hearing, so let's get into it. Question 1. What is the annual income of Yujiro Hanma, the strongest creature on Earth? With Itagaki's response making the most sense in regards to Yujiro's character. He says that Yujiro doesn't, he just solves everything with pure strength, which somehow resulted in the conversation talking about how he's never had T-Rex meat, unlike Pickle. I guess Baki logic applies to him in real life as well. There's a question about the final scene between Yujiro and Baki, the imagination miso soup or dining scene, with a question being asked of what it's actually based on, with his response once again being quite simple. It's a regular miso soup. Is this him dodging the question, or is my man just the ultimate troll? Next question. A lot of people gathered for the father-son fight between Yujiro and Baki, but how famous are the Hanma father and son? I don't know if the people asking these questions hadn't actually read Baki, but of course they're very famous. Baki in a few arcs previously literally kidnapped the President of America, and Yujiro is known throughout the world as it got to see, so of course very famous. Which does actually result in them talking about a scene from the start of the Musashi arc, when Yujiro signs the autograph in the very badass way, with of course Itagaki laughing about that and enjoying it. One of the most interesting questions I actually discussed already in a previous video was, what is the only thing Baki can do to defeat Yujiro, with him outright stating, Baki will never be able to win again. Of course, take note, some translations are a bit iffy. I had to rely on the auto translation feature on YouTube, so some stuff may be wrong, but regarding the circumstances of this question, this most likely says never. With him continuing to explain this response by saying, surprisingly, Yujiro may not be able to do the math, meaning Yujiro wouldn't be able to understand the concept of him losing twice. As we know, at the end of the Baki and Yujiro fight, after Baki forced Yujiro to believe his imagination with the whole table flip scene, he admitted that Baki had defeated him and that he is now the strongest creature alive. Of course, this isn't a typical win that I'll explain in further questions answered in this video. The next one I have here is actually pretty interesting as well. We had the Baki voice actor say the following. The scene where Yujiro fights Pickle, I was shocked that he had used martial arts, once again confirming that Yujiro was forced to use martial arts against the overwhelming pure strength of Pickle in that scene, with the single line response from the author being of course very funny as well. Isn't this the scene where Yujiro broke the handicap he imposed on himself? So pretty much saying, yeah, Yujiro did that, so what? We got a big section for one of the videos talking about pretty much the most normal character, or the character they would actually take to a party, with the answer from the author being Katsumi, explaining how he's the most normal out of the main fighters in the series, which I can kinda get as well. This was then followed by once again a pretty wacky conversation. The question was, if Yujiro could grant you one wish, what would you ask him to do? This led into the Yujiro voice actor, I guess being a Baki goon himself, who says the following. See what Yujiro would do to destroy a building that is very close to another building without damaging the second building upon destroying the first. Don't know how he came up with this, but pretty wacky stuff. I think it's safe to say that he's definitely fitting as a Baki character's voice actor, especially Yujiro. Up next we have, I guess, the little bit controversial coal scene. It's mentioned that in the scene between Yujiro and President Obama, Yujiro might be able to turn coal into diamonds, but Yujiro's actions ended up being a lie, with Itagaki pretty much confirming what a lot of us believe now occurred in this scene. Yujiro pretty much destroyed the table, making it seem like he had a diamond in his hand, meaning he had turned the coal into a diamond to pretty much trick the president, while in reality he wasn't able to do that, with it being confirmed here. Which does beg the question of whether Sukune was able to perform this feat, as the main law about him was Sukune being able to do this, while Yujiro in the series prior had to trick Obama in actually performing this feat, meaning Sukune's grip strength is probably the strongest we've ever had in the universe. We have a question about the random stuff Yujiro does throughout the series and how it actually comes to his mind, with his response being, yeah, they just come here and there, so I guess man's just a genius, and they like to pretty much call him the genius god throughout a lot of these interviews, at least the voice actors. If you don't know, Baki as a manga is one of the most popular in all of Japan. Unfortunately, the manga still hasn't gotten an official English release for all of us Western fans. They actually have a French one now, so maybe it's coming in the future. But when it comes to the Japanese audience, Baki is in the top most sold manga of all time, which is pretty crazy, with Itagaki pretty much being a celebrity in Japan at this point. There's a question about what he was thinking after he finished the Baki vs Yujiro fight in the manga, and what he says is probably the best thing out of all these interviews, pretty much explaining how, yeah, I knew it was fire, and I knew it would be made into an anime someday, so you gotta respect that. The next question is, as you were drawing the manga, did your feelings for Yujiro increase? With him confirming that Yujiro grew in the series and he became more and more attractive, this is very clear as depicted in the art, looking more monstrous in the early days compared to now. Or maybe not now, is kind of going down a different route, I would like to say. Saying that he wanted to be similar to him, which is actually a long-lasting theory in the fandom that Yujiro is like an insert character for himself, which is pretty wild considering some stuff he does. He mentions that he has 3 daughters and no sons, with his father being the complete opposite of Yujiro. Maybe that's how he came up with Yuichiro's character, with him going into more detail how he didn't really like his father at all, with him having a strong repulsion towards his father, which may connect to some stuff we get to see in Yujiro's character as well. If he considers Yujiro what he wanted to be to a degree, pretty interesting stuff. Right after he finished the Baki vs Yujiro fight, he realized he could do something completely new, and he showed his editor, who was extremely surprised. This of course, as we know, resulted in the Masashi arc after that, and then the Suma arc, and now Baki Rahen. Which also confirms that he wasn't actually pressured to continue the story, he wanted to continue it himself, which I guess is good as a whole. He provides more information about Baki's character, how yes, he was always trying to surpass Yujiro, and it just so happened to be that his father was the strongest creature alive, which actually made him happy with his father being so strong. So with that, is adding more information about Baki's character and motive throughout the story. In one of the interviews, there's an interesting scene where he seems to dislike the first manga, Grappler Baki. Whether this be the art in it or the story, I'm not too sure. It's a little strange, and the translations in this moment weren't the best, I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty wild with like question marks even coming up as they had no idea what they were saying. But it seemed like he was kinda embarrassed by it for some reason. I'm not too sure why. When it comes to writing, I think Grappler Baki is the best in the series and also has some of the best fights. So who knows, that's a little unfortunate and strange. Now coming back to the stuff I talked about at the start of the video regarding the end of the fight between Yujiro and Baki, it confirms here that the battle itself ended before the final episode, with pretty much it being clear that Yujiro won the battle, but Baki pretty much won the war by the end. Explaining it as they're done pretty much hurting each other physically, and that during the time he was actually drawing this, his editor was freaking out due to not going down, I guess, the typical pathway for a story like this, where Baki would actually defeat his father with raw strength, knock him out, prove that he's stronger. Baki was the one who was pretty much knocked down, destroyed in the fight, and then the pretty wild and unique stuff that occurred after that, which resulted in Baki's victory, not really pure fighting. Also claiming that he usually drew manga in 20 pages, but this time he chose 24, which, you know, some other authors go crazy with chapter amounts, but my man sticks to 20 and chose, oh yeah, I'll do 24 for, you know, the potential final chapter of my manga. With him also confirming that Yujiro and Baki are complete characters at that point in the story, meaning it can really proceed in any way as want. That's how we got the Masashi arc, that's how we got the Suma arc, and that's how we're getting the Jack arc to, I guess, complete the other Hanma's character in the story. He confirmed that when he was writing the climax of Baki vs Yujiro, he was fairly chill while his publishers were freaking out. I guess man's just a legend. And now the final question to go over in today's video, probably once again one of the best. He says that he's happy that the anime has received worldwide acclaim, but the original manga is even more interesting, which is very true. I wouldn't say Baki as an anime is bad, but as a story it's definitely better told in manga format. This is probably due to the annoying narrator in the anime taking up a lot of time, while in the manga you can get through it quite easily, and of course the amazing art. I know some people for some reason claim that the art isn't good. I view them as pretty much delusional at this point. The art in Baki is peak and always has been, even now. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. A lot of the interactions between him and the voice actors were a little goofy at times. He seemed to be a lot closer to the Yujiro voice actor rather than the Baki, and it seemed like the Yujiro guy had a far better understanding of Baki as a story and Yujiro as a character compared to this guy who seemed to be confused about a lot of stuff at times, which is, I guess, a little unfortunate. And there were a lot of goofy questions that aren't really relevant to anything that I didn't talk about. But of course, check out the interviews yourself if you want. Of course, shout out to these mad lads, and that's it guys. Peace.